today's world of high-speed connection, text messaging, and social networking, we often find ourselves searching for information. There are millions of blogs on the internet. News, sports, politics, and tech. But I bring it all together for you and present it in a relentlessly unconventional fashion. My name is Zenny Abraham, and this is the Blog Report. It's time now for politics. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. And you want to know what I thought of Governor Mitt Romney's speech? I watched every speech at every convention, Democrat and Republican, either on television or in person at the 2008 Democratic National Convention since 1972. On a scale of A to F, I have to give Mitt Romney a B-. I was going to originally give him a C-, but even though I'm a Democrat, I'm also a fan of politics. And Governor Romney hit the mark for delivering a speech that was emotive. Unfortunately, there were other aspects of his speech that weren't so good. For example, he, at this point, to use one example, stumbled over words, and he did that several times here.
And eager to work. To be an American was to assume that all things were possible. When President Kennedy challenged Americans to go to the moon, the question...
In another case, where he reached a high mark of emoting, he talked about his family, and that's where you knew he really spoke from the heart. Watch.
Dad gave Mom a rose, which he put on her bedside table. That's how she found out what happened on the day my father died. She went looking for him because that morning there was no rose. My mom and dad were true partners. A life.
But where he, I thought, lost ground was, first of all, this really, really, really awful direction of implying in some way that our current president is not American when he said that we have to, if you want something done big, you have to make sure an American does it. There's a hint there that a lot of people in Twitter didn't like. This is what he said.
And the utter confidence that when the world needs someone to do the really big stuff, you need an American.
And then he really screwed up when he mentioned Steve Jobs. He lost the tech community because Steve Jobs founded Apple. He didn't get necessarily fired from Apple. It was more complicated than that. And he came back and he took his company back. It was more complicated than that. But when you go into that area and you don't know what you're talking about and you're doing it as a politician, you just lost the tech community. Gone. Here's what happened.
It's about dreams. Usually it doesn't work out exactly as you might have imagined. Steve Jobs was fired at Apple. And then he came back and changed the world.
So, on balance, people say that, who are supporters of Mitt Romney, or at least want to be fair from the media, it was his best speech. But if that's the best he can do, I don't think he's entirely won over the American people to the degree he needed to make that difference. His speech was, by points, more mongering, yet he's, on the one hand, saying we can't spend money we don't have, chides the president for being in Afghanistan, and then yet saber rattles to start wars in other areas or to pick fights with other countries that are currently our allies, specifically Russia. It's not good. Additionally, I thought Governor Romney, and this is really where everything just fell apart, had the wind at his sails and would have kept it there were it not for this man.
I never thought that it was a good idea for attorneys to be president anyway, because it...
Clint Eastwood up Mitt Romney's speech. There's no other lighter way to put it. He just did. He came in unprepared, was disrespectful in referring to the president as Mr. Obama as he did here.
All of us. So I've got Mr. Obama sitting here, And I just was going to ask him a couple questions. But
then went to the invisible Obama route in talking with this chair, and sounded overall like he was drunk. Whatever was on the mind of Clint Eastwood, it wasn't because he was 82 years old. It was because, in my humble view, having met Clint Eastwood before when I was a representative for Mayor Elihu Harris of Oakland, and Mr. Eastwood, I had the pleasure of getting a cocktail for him, and he wanted, well, in this case, a light beer. I think he had something a lot stronger tonight.
how do you handle promises that you made when you were running for election, and how do you handle it? I mean, what do you say to people? Do you just? And then I just wondered all these promises, and then I wondered about you know, when the what do you want me to tell Romney? I can't tell him to do that. Can't do that to himself.
At the end of the speeches on Twitter, the dominant term, one of the dominant top 10 terms, had nothing to do with Mitt Romney, and it had everything to do with Clint Eastwood, and that was invisible Obama. So now we go to the Democratic National Convention, where yours truly will be there covering it. I leave Saturday for Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm very excited. I thank Tout for sponsoring our trip. Stay tuned and follow me on Twitter, follow me on Tout, subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube. Thank you. And let me know what you think, please.